Number one. 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 Number one.
Yeah, so that was a thing that happened. I do want to be clear, I don't want to crap on Indian fans for cheering for Jinder, because the way I look at it, it's a lot like me being a fan of the Bullet Club when I watch New Japan. I side with the Westerners, because that's who I identify with. So Indian fans are likely going to identify with the Indo-Canadian Jinder Mahal. It just makes sense for that to be the case. So I'm not trying to crap on them with that intro. It's just, I thought it was funny. Okay. The thing I did not like, the match should have been a star maker for Jinder Mahal, and it ended up just being a good match. Not a great one. It should have been a lot more than it was. I did not see anything out of the match that told me, oh, he sucks, he's not worth anything, but I also didn't see anything that told me he really deserves to be the champion right now. So, I'm hoping that next few matches he has, he really kind of brings something to the table that shows me that he's got that. Like I said, I'm not writing him off. I just wish I had seen more out of him. Also, over the weekend, we had NXT TakeOver. Biggest news, of course, was the breakup of DIY. Solid main event. That ladder match was excellent. I don't think it was on par with the last two DIY Authors of Pain matches. We had the match where the Authors of Pain actually won the belts, and then the three-way that also included the Revival. I thought those two were matches of their respective nights. They're both on my list of matches to go back at the end of the year and look at when I do my top 10 list. This one did not make that list, but just barely. It was a good match, solid match. If you didn't see it, definitely watch it and watch what happened after the match, because that was crazy. But I think the show was stolen by the Tyler Bate-Pete Dunne match, which ended up seeing Pete Dunne take the championship going into the new WWE UK show. So now they've got that heel to chase, just like what happened with the 205 Live and Brian Kendrick winning the belt, and now with Neville having the belt. Weird how that works out, isn't it? Another big story this week was Ed Nordholm of Anthem basically spilling all the tea he has on the situation with the Hardys. He went to a number of different wrestling news sites and basically sent them the contracts that they had with the Hardys and all correspondence that they've had with the Hardys, with their legal team, with WWE. Turns out WWE has no interest in buying the Broken Hardys gimmick. They don't want to use it. They're fine without it. Turns out that the Hardy contracts were work for hire. So unless the Hardys can find some sort of loophole, that means anything that they created, even if they were the sole creator, which is not what they're arguing. They've always said that Jeremy Borash was part of it. But even if they were the sole creators, it would still belong to Impact, and by virtue of the purchase, Anthem, they would own all that IP. So the story's not over yet. Looks like especially Rebby Hardy's not willing to let this die, but it's going to be a very steep hill for the Hardys to climb if they are going to try to maintain any kind of ownership on the Broken gimmick. WWE officially announced the Mae Young Classic to take place this summer. We don't know who's in it yet. I think a lot of people were pleasantly surprised that it was named after Mae Young instead of the Fabulous Moolah. Young has a little bit of baggage to her name, but not as much as Moolah. Moolah kind of, people like to beat on her a little bit because of the stories about what happened in her school. Supposedly Mae Young might have been complicit in some of the, we'll say, nefarious acts that are alleged to have happened. But don't know what actually went on. But I think it's cool that they're going ahead with the tournament. Hopefully we'll see some names soon. We've seen a lot of people get signed recently, some Japanese talents. We've seen Candice LeRae sign. I think Toni Storm is supposed to have signed. So there's a lot of names. They've said it's going to be a 32-person tournament, which is crazy if all of those are going to be women that are not currently on the NXT roster. I'd imagine a couple of them are people that are already at the Performance Center and might even be doing the Florida circuit shows, but haven't yet made it to TV. But even if that's as many as 8 people, which is probably a high estimate, that's still 24 people that they're bringing in. And even if that's just for the tournament itself and not going forward, that's a lot of talent to fill. Because I don't think they're using any main roster talent, and it's doubtful that they'll use any current NXT talent in that. But yeah, it's going to be a hell of a thing to see where that goes. Elias Sampson finally debuted, so I don't know if we're going to be seeing any more of Elias Sampson drifting around backstage anymore. If he does, we might see more of him here on Too Late to Sleep. I enjoyed the little bits of him showing up. Okay, I just had to make sure. But I was impressed with this match. He won, but it was by disqualification. It was a forced DQ. I was pleasantly surprised that he was not treated as just immediate job. I was afraid that he might get beaten in like 5 seconds because he never really accomplished anything storyline-wise in NXT. He's a really good enhancement talent. He gets a lot of people to hate him with his music. His singing was atrocious on Raw, as it's supposed to be, to the point that even though it wasn't a very lively crowd, when Dean Ambrose music hit to interrupt him, the crowd went wild, which is really what is the most you can ask for from a bad guy, getting the good guy cheers. So it really worked out well. I hope that they've got something for Elias, but if not, I'm just happy he's on the main roster. Seems like a good guy, really good at what he does. Final piece of information to talk about, WCPW, What Culture Pro Wrestling, canceled their Loaded series. That was their weekly series that would run on Mondays. I think they moved it to the weekend. It was hard for me to keep up with because they wouldn't archive it like they used to. They put all the archives in WCPW Extra, their subscription service. So if you weren't watching live, it was hard to keep track of it. It wasn't like it was on cable where you could just set your DVR. YouTube just doesn't have that function unless it's something that they're actually archiving, which they weren't. Anyway, because of the YouTube adpocalypse, they were not making as much money on their shows. The videos that they were putting out for free were bringing in pitifully little money, millions of views and tens of dollars, and it just was not sustainable. So they've canceled Loaded, and they're going to focus on their Super Show events. I think it's a shame. Now, if you're watching me, you're one of just a small handful. You've probably seen the views counter down there. You know that there's not many people watching me. This is not making me any money to speak of, but I do track my analytics. I do track my cost per mil, which is your ad rate, basically. And while mine went down a little bit when all this stuff happened originally with the advertisers walking out, it's gone back to where it was before, which apparently isn't happening with a lot of channels and is not happening with any wrestling-related channels. So I don't know what the story is. Now, this for me is a hobby. I'm not making any money to speak of. I have a couple dozen dollars in my Google account right now. But that's over over 100 videos, whereas What Culture's making that off of one video on almost no CPM. So I don't know what's going on there. But it's a damn shame. It's a damn shame that whatever is happening to wrestling videos on other YouTube channels is canceling wrestling, is taking wrestling away from us. And I just want to say to anybody that might be listening, it sucks. And if you can just put a word out on Twitter or an email, something to YouTube, and let them know this sucks and they need to do something to put this right, think about doing it. That's all I got for you this week. I love you, Trampions. Thank you for checking this out. Obviously, from what you've just heard, you know that I appreciate it. As always, cheers.
We're all just assholes talking to a camera. We're all just assholes talking to a camera. Do you brag 'cause you're bored? Or are you insecure? Because we're all just a bunch of assholes.